Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to God's own parish, the Parish of St Clement. It was named thus by our late Connotable, and sadly, as a result of his passing, we now have an election for a constable of our parish. My name is Sue Pearmain. I am the Senior Procureur du Bien Public of the parish, and as such, I am the electoral administrator. The candidates have both asked that we provide facilities for Hustings, and in these exciting times, we are doing this online for the first time. I've never done this before, nor have the candidates. I don't think many others have done it either. So we'll all be trying to make it work as easily as possible. We've tried to replicate as much as we could what would have happened at a live husting had this hall been full to the brim and beyond, with keen persons asking questions and wanting to hear the answers. So I will introduce the candidates. First of all, we have two candidates who have put their names forward. One is Simon Bray, who is on my left, and the other is Marcus Troy. I would just explain to you, to begin with, the procedure that we're going to be using tonight, so you all got a bit of an idea of what to expect, even if perhaps we might not do. What we're proposing to do is, first of all, we will use a couple of golf balls and a very clever blue cloth bag. Each of the golf balls has got one of the candidates' initials on. Marcus?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to put them in there. And what will happen, I will then draw one of them out, and they have allowed me to actually put my hand, with my additional accoutrement, into the ball and draw out the ball. And the ball I draw out will be the candidate who gives the first introductory speech. After that, we will be, after they've given the introductory speech, we will then be asking questions. We've had some written questions into the parish hall, and with the help of the technology, there is apparently an app that can ensure that questions can give a number, and then the numbers will be drawn at random. So unlike what would happen in a normal husting, when I would cast my eye around the hall and go from left to right, right to left, man, woman, old, young, or those who I just fancy, really, we would try and choose it that way. But now we've got a machine that will do it for us. So that's going to be interesting. We're specifying that each of the questioners give their name and the area in which they live. Then, when we draw the questions, we've also managed to do it so we will ask, the candidates have asked that parishioners are the first people to ask the questions. And we've already submitted those that have come to the parish hall, and we've already got two questions which have been drawn for asking. My problem is my screen goes dead every now and again, so please forgive me if you see me moving this just to reactivate my hibernating iPad, but hopefully we'll get there. And I will have a look here. Yes. Yes, so I will ask, we will be drawn two questions to begin with, and I will put first one question, but what we've also specified is that the questions are directed to both candidates. We have to ensure equality of time between them, and therefore if everyone decided just to ask questions of one candidate, it would not give equality of time to the other. So any question that is directed to one candidate, if I can't manage to turn it so that we can direct it to both of them, I will reject it. We will first deal with the parishioners. Then we will go to, hopefully, the young people. At 8 o'clock tonight, we hope to be able to specify a particular time so that young people can ask questions specifically. Certainly when I've presided over these meetings before, and I've looked around. It's seldom do we have people under 30. But let's hope with this new technology, we are going to have more younger questions as well, not just the old fogies. So hopefully we're going to have a little bit more excitement on that. Once we have exhausted parishioners' questions, then we will turn to non-parishioners' questions until there are no more valid questions left, when I intend to close the meeting around 9 o'clock. I won't stop whichever candidate is speaking in mid-flow, but allow them to come to the natural end of it. And of course, if we get to a very exciting bit, then perhaps I might let it go on a little bit longer. Each candidate, when they answer, will not answer a question for more than 5 minutes, and a warning bell will be given at 4 minutes, so they know that they've got 1 minute before they're going to stop. And we will allow a short lapse to let them draw breath. I hope that explains to you all what we're proposing to do. And so now I'm going to choose whoever starts. I'm going to put my hand in here. I'm going to swirl the balls around. I've picked one out, and the first person is Simon Bray.
Thank you.
So, Simon, would you like to start?
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Simon Bray, and I am seeking your vote in the forthcoming election for the Connétable of St Clement to be held on Wednesday, the 28th of July. The parish and the island suffered a great loss with the untimely passing of Len Norman. Len's length of service and experience in both the parish administration and the States Assembly is unlikely ever to be equalled. St Clement now faces the task of electing a new Connotable, one who will not only serve out the rest of the term, but who would seek re-election in June 2022 to offer continuity going forward. We live in very worrying and concerning times, with the number of COVID active cases going up every day, now numbering well over 3,000. Now, more than ever, we need strong leadership and experienced political representation. The role of Connotable is a vitally important one for the continued prosperity of the parish and its parishioners, and the island as a whole, by virtue of a seat in the States Assembly. But what is the role of a Connotable? It is quite a different one to that of a deputy or senator. The role is twofold, but first and foremost is as head of the parish administration and as father of the parish. Your Connotable also represents you, the parishioners, in the States Assembly. This role should not become political, nor seek to promote any personal views or agendas. As your Connotable, I will ensure that your views are given a strong voice and that the parish's best interests are robustly protected. This includes strongly resisting any further large-scale development on green fields. I will support and protect the island's unique way of life, traditions, culture and society. I am proud to be a Jerseyman and a St Clemente and see nothing wrong in saying so. I strongly believe in the parochial system and its place in island life, and will do whatever I can to stop this being eroded. You now face the choice of electing one of two quite different candidates. I will not seek to force my political views upon you. I will listen to you and represent your views in the States Assembly. I will not seek to promote any sector or industry in which I have a personal financial vested interest in. I will always work for the benefit of all. I am not a member of any political party, nor a member of any political lobby group. For the record, I do not believe that your Connotable should be a member of any political group or lobby group, as their allegiance lies with the parish, not with a party's manifesto, nor bowing to external third-party pressures. I am not supported, directly or indirectly, by any member of the Council of Ministers, and I am not, nor ever have been, part of the establishment, as some like to describe it. I have seen at first hand that many parishioners feel cut off from parish life and island politics. This must change so that our parish and government are working for the benefit of all. No one should feel excluded or not represented. As your Connotable, I will be accessible to each and every one of you. If elected, I would work hard for an additional polling station to be set up at the western end of the parish, for example, the Good Companions Club or Samurai School, in time for the general elections in June 2022. For too long now, parishioners in the west of the parish have felt alienated from the voting process due to the effort of getting to the parish hall, especially if their only form of transport is by bus. So why vote for me? I was elected as a deputy for St Clement in 2014, serving you until 2018, giving me nearly 4 years of invaluable experience of the States Assembly and all its workings. During this time, I helped numerous parishioners, especially through the minefield that is social security. Prior to that, I had been a roads inspector, continuing a long family tradition of parish service. I have a proven track record in both the States Assembly and parish life. The experience, the commitment, the knowledge, the ability, the energy and the integrity to take on the responsibility of being the next Connétable of St Clement. This is not an election for a deputy or a senator, where you would be looking for a fully formed and costed out political manifesto. This is to elect a new Connotable, someone who has the experience and the knowledge to lead and guide the parish through these difficult times and forwards into the future. I would be honoured if you would place your trust in me by giving me your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Very nicely timed. So now I'll turn to Marcus. Marcus, would you like to give your introductory speech?
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At times like these, there is a need for a man or a woman with the common touch. A person with a common touch is a person who can bridge the gaps between those that have and those that have not, who communicates as well with the powers that be as the man or woman in the street, and a person who unites the great and the good for the benefit of all. Now, I've been told by a few that I am a man with that ability, and that is why I think I was asked to stand for Constable of St Clement. But that's for you to decide, so here we go. I am Marcus Troy. I have been married for 25 years to Diana and have 2 daughters, Ebony and Jessica, and have lived and worked in St Clement for the past 29 years or so. Born in Jersey and educated at Victoria College in Holyer, I then spent 2 years at Highlands College, where the lights came on, and bingo, I found my vocation. And so I've just spent an entire career looking after people and property in the hospitality business. I have managed small, medium and large hotels and hotel groups, employing hundreds of people from all walks of life and from many different countries. I have bought and sold and refurbished many hotels and been responsible for their upkeep, purchases and sales, and increased their business and profitability, and satisfied the increasing demands of thousands of people on holiday for over 45 years. Now, the only reason I'm telling you this is because you have to make the connection between what I have done and what I can do for you. So why Constable? Well, first of all, I was asked, which is important to me, because it means that some people out there think I can do the job and maybe do it well. But we all know that the job is a dual role, which makes the office that much harder by both looking after the well-being and expectations of the great many people in St Clement and by being a representative in the States of Jersey. So let me be clear from the outset that parish matters are my first and overriding priority, and that has to be very clear. Having said that, I'm not daunted by my position in the States Assembly in the slightest, and look forward to speaking my mind with the promise to you that I will not be joining a political party and I will not be swayed by any group of people to vote in any other way than my experience and conscience dictates. I should clarify something else at the same time. I want to be your constable, not a deputy. I will not be on the Council of Ministers because, frankly, I do not believe in collective responsibility. I do not want to be on the front cover of the Jersey Evening Post, nor do I crave television time. And I certainly don't want my name carved in a large lump of granite. I have no ego to satisfy, and all I need is a quiet thank you or a thumbs up passing by, because I'm a people person who can boost morale in the parish administration, and voluntary services and make things better. A people person who can listen to and not attempt to dominate the parish police and other sections of the parish committees. And a people person who is approachable and sympathetic to the needs of others. Who will protect our green spaces, slow down our traffic, and reach out to those in crisis, young and old. People before politics. By now you will have hopefully made the connection that my career and life experiences are more than compatible with the ability to look after your well-being in the parish and have your confidence in being a more potent states member than many who are currently in the House and many who have been before. You will also know by other means that I have already helped over several years, both as a committee member and member of St Clement's Battle of Flowers Association, by providing food at the shed and raising valuable funds and raising money through barbecues, curry nights, etc. I have also helped raise funds for and provided food parcels for children's Christmas toy vouchers and many breaks for those in need through the fabulous and groundbreaking St Clement's Community Support Service that was founded by Len. And I've also served on the Board of Governors of La Rocchia School for many years. I am therefore already committed to the parish community. I hope the community will now commit to me and give me your vote of confidence. Thank you very much for listening.
Again, very well timed. Thank you very much, Marcus, for that. And now we are going to turn to the first of the written questions that we've had submitted. The candidates do not know what this question is, and I've only just had it put up on the screen. So the first question has been asked by a parishioner who is Rob Beaumont, and he lives in the area of La Petite Sainte. And his question is, what will each candidate do to bolster the green credentials of St Clement? And what initiatives will be put in place to drive carbon neutrality? Now, this is a very topical subject, and I'm going to ask one of the candidates to answer first, and as B becomes before T, I'm going to start with Bray. Simon Bray, would you like to answer that one? Would you like me to repeat the questions?
No, that's perfectly all right.
All right,
Thank you very much. The question from Mr. Beaumont is as Mrs. Permain says, a very, very topical one. We are faced with a climate crisis, as one can see by the wind blowing in there. But we have a lot as a parish we can do. Now, one of the things that I would like to see is ways in which the parish can take the initiative on sustainable transport and active transport. One of the problems we have in the parish is the huge growth in traffic over the last 20 or so years, particularly around the school areas. There have been a number of initiatives already brought forward by the parish to try and slow traffic down, to make certain lanes pedestrians only at certain times. I think we could go further than that. What I would like to do is to initiate a project where we look at actually putting in a network of dedicated cycle and pedestrian paths around the parish that all interconnect and do not go anywhere near an existing road or lane. We are going to have to work with landowners on that. It is going to cost money, certainly. There are ways to mitigate those costs by looking for sponsorship, things like that. But not only will it make people think about getting into their cars and going, wouldn't it be better if I could cycle or walk somewhere? But it also is an excellent tourism offering. So the benefits outweigh any costs. And I think we as a parish can do a lot. We've already got an existing network to build on. We've already got the willingness within the parish to move in this direction. And I think it would be a very, very good thing for the parish to sponsor and speak, the constable of the parish then speak to the other constables and go, this is a great idea. Can we not have an island-wide network of dedicated, safe pathways for cyclists and pedestrians? It does a lot to bolster local wildlife and wildflowers. It does a lot to bring people out of their cars It will make getting to school safer for school children. So I think, yes, there are a lot of things we as a parish can build on the work that's already been done and really concentrate long and hard on how do we make everybody's lives better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. And now, Marcus, what would you like to say?
It's as simple as this, ladies and gentlemen. We need more education on the subject. There are conflicting stories, for example, about electric cars, where the lithium batteries are destroying huge mining areas of the world. And as a 65-year-old, I'm confused, and we probably need educating by our youngsters. I drive around in a scooter when the weather is good. That's a minor contribution. It's not deliberate. It's as much convenient as anything else. But I think education is the key. One of my initiatives, if I were to be elected, I've promised some parishioners who are asking about the traffic in the area, and I want to make people feel more comfortable with the speed limits that have been designated. And the older generation, for example, are uncomfortable. We need to slow the whole community down. Actually, we need to slow life down in general. Life is getting far too fast. If you overtake somebody on the coast road, a cyclist or whatever, that person will catch you up 2 minutes down the line. So it's a complete waste of time. So one of my initiatives will be that we would issue, and if the funds allowed, it would be done by parish. If not, we would raise money through a business initiative I'm thinking of. We would have stickers on the backs of people's cars saying something like, we would obviously get it designed, "We're slowing down in St Clement." Okay? We're slowing down because there's an accident waiting to happen outside the Ambassador Hotel, whereby if you overtake two cyclists, you're going to have a head-on collision. That sort of thing. But I think most important is education. We're none of us getting the message correctly. Other things we've been talking about is roadside collection. That's a good idea. Simon Crowcroft has an example down at Halfday Park, and I believe Guernsey's quite successful with that sort of thing. We should look at that, but it's going to be expensive, because if you think about the time delay of the people picking up your waste compared to the big dustbins that we all use, it's going to be a lot more expensive. Frankly, I think we should get some of the young people on board and have a little parish think tank, and do it cross-generationally. Because education. I don't think anybody out there has got the definitive answer, but it needs to be done soon. I've also been speaking with the gentleman who's in charge of the environment in the Ramsar site, the coastal site there, and he says, look, global warming's not about just picking litter up off the high tide mark. It's much more serious than that. His name's Kevin McElwee, and I've had a good chat with him about various aspects of the environment. And this is not just about putting fields of wildflowers out there. It's about getting the communities thinking along the same lines. And that's what we're failing to do, all of us. And that's where I am. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Now, I've got another question to ask the candidates, but I'm waiting for another two questions to pop up on my screen to make sure that I've got another two for once this second question is answered. So I'm hoping someone is listening. Ladies and gentlemen out there, boys and girls, but particularly the person who's going to be feeding me these questions. So can I have the next two questions? But the next question to be answered by asked of the candidates is that's been put by William Le Bourgeois, and he lives in the Samaray area. And he says, if unelected, would the unsuccessful candidate stand for deputy or Connotable in the general election in June 2022? I'm going to put this question first to Marcus.
Fine.
Would you like a little bit more time, Marcus?
No, not at all.
Are you ready
No, I'm ready.
That one?
No, I'm ready for that one. I might stand for constable in the next elections. I don't think I would stand for deputy, and I'll tell you why. I think the constable's job is sort of my fit. Like I say, I've been looking after people for an entire career, all nationalities, all faiths, all sorts of problems I've had to sort out, from housing to children's situations. People are sort of what I do. And I think the constable has a far-reaching claim to know his parish better than the deputies. And good heavens, we're going to have 4 deputies in our parish. So there's a huge split. I think the constable's job is my fit, and I would stand again. Hate to frighten Simon, but for constable, but I don't think I'd stand for deputy. I actually do think the States is too fat. I think there's too many members in the States per se. If you look at other jurisdictions, there is not the necessity for as many members, I feel, especially with the system that we're using. If we're using a committee system, then maybe, but otherwise I think we're too fat. That's my stance.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Now, before I turn to Simon, I'll just say that I still haven't had any more questions that have come through to me. I'm hoping there's not a problem on the IT, but I haven't got... Once Simon has answered this question, I've got no more questions. So I'm hoping that someone will be feeding me through with those questions, perhaps. Anyway, so let's keep our fingers crossed. And Simon, would you like to answer?
Certainly, thank you very
question?
much.
Would you like me to read it again?
No. Thank you very much. And thank you to Mr. Le Bourgeois for sending it in. First of all, I hate to burst Mr. Troy's balloon, but he doesn't actually frighten me. Secondly, I think it's a very interesting question because in June 2022, it's going to be a complete change to what we are used to have in our States Assembly. Senators will be gone. So no more island-wide representation. There will be new electoral districts. Luckily, St Clement's is one district on its own, and we are lucky enough that we are going to have 4 deputies instead of 2. But what is happening is it's pushing deputies into being in political parties. Now, as an independent within the States Assembly, it is very difficult sometimes to actually make any kind of headway. And it's difficult sometimes to make your voice heard. I think party politics is not the best route for this island to go down. But the decision has been voted on by the States Assembly. That is where we are going. If I am unsuccessful in this election, then I feel that I will stand again for Connotable in 2022. And the reason for that is I feel that the Connotable role is a very particular one, as I said in my speech. It's very different from being a deputy or a senator at the moment, although they will disappear. And I think it will be a much more important role in June 2022. Because of political parties, deputies will need to follow political party manifestos, so they may lose sight of the best interests of the parish that they represent. I think a constable, by not belonging to a political party, not belonging to the Council of Ministers or the Executive, can be a truly independent voice within the States Assembly, representing his or her parish to the best of their abilities. And I think that's where the important work lies for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Now, I think much to the relief of the staff here, I have got some more questions now, so I won't be asking you to chant rhubarb until we wait. I've got another lot of questions. Now, this question we've got is been put by Tanya Brint on behalf of Betty Brint. She is in the area of Pontac, and she would like to know why, when she can get her driving licence from the parish hall, she has to travel to St Helier to obtain her blue badge. What are your thoughts on the current system? Right. Now then, Marcus, would you like me to read the question again?
No, that's fine. I didn't know that, and quite honestly, it's ridiculous. It's quite simple to get a driving licence here, and other documents, dog licence, etc., etc. The idea is to make people happy in their situation and do the best thing we can for them. It's ludicrous, and that's a simple and short answer to that.
Thank you. And Simon.
Thank you very much. It is a bit of an anomaly, isn't it, that you go to the parish hall for your driving licence or provisional driving licence, but to get a blue badge, you have to go to the town hall. Now, my father is in exactly the same position. Part of the problem lies in a push towards moving towards a central administration system, on the argument that there are cost benefits to be had. I actually think it's a wrong move. I think that we need, as a parish, to be able to cater to all the needs of all the parishioners all the time. Now, that may need investment in certain IT systems. It may need investment in certain retraining of parish hall staff. But I think it's important that we don't let the importance of the parish hall and the parish entity to fall away in front of this push for centralisation and cost efficiency, which seems to be happening over the past few years. It is important for your constable to actually push hard to protect the parishioners and the actions that can happen within the parish hall, such as the issuing of a blue badge for parking. There is no reason why it cannot be done from the parish hall, and yet a decision was taken that it should be. I think that decision should be reversed, and that we should look at very closely all of the services that the parish hall offers, all of the ones they can't currently offer, and find a way, find a solution that parishioners have one port of call for all their needs, and that is their parish hall. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And sorry, I was just going to ask you, Marcus, have you answered that one?
Yes.
You have indeed,
first,
right, okay.
first.
We can then move on then to the second question, and I would just warn those away from here that this is our second question, so if they can send us the next two, fine. This question would be, I would like to know, this is from Aisling Farrell, who lives in the area of Lamar, and she would like to know if there are any plans to expand primary school capacity in the parish. Each new development brings more much-needed family homes, but families come with children, and children need an education. So now, is it your turn to start, isn't it, Simon? Yes.
New houses being built in the parish bring with them new demands, not only on the schools, but on the parish infrastructure. The traffic builds up. The schools at the moment are at breaking point, some of them. The teacher to pupil ratio is not what it should be. The problem we have is that, on the whole, education is dealt with by, again, a centralised department. Whilst there are very often great plans spoken about in the States Assembly, and the mantra of children first is always trotted out by whatever minister happens to be in charge of education at the time, we're not really seeing any concrete evidence of that commitment actually resulting in new primary schools or expansion of primary schools. Primary school care and education is vitally important to the development of any child. And I think the parish needs to get more involved in the decisions that are taken by central government that affect parishioners of St Clement. If I were elected as Connotable, that is something I would do. Because I think it's important that at all times the Connotable remains outside of the Council of Ministers and the Executive, but at all times is a critical friend, a voice of scrutiny, true, but looking to provide the best that he or she can for their particular parish. I would like to see more primary school places being available. Unfortunately, we have a lot of new homes in the parish being built. We have to call a stop to that at one time or another and say, where do we go in the next 10 to 15 years? We as a parish need to take more control over what is happening in our parish. With the current system of government, That isn't always easy. But if you have a constable who is willing to try, then perhaps we could be successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. And now, Marcus, would you like me to read the question?
No,
again?
that's fine. Thank you, Sue. It's a chicken and egg situation, ladies and gentlemen. We have 9,500 to 10,000 people in St Clement. We know that we need more school space, both at La Rocquiere and St Clement's Primary School. We have to find the space in a community that doesn't want us to build in this area. Now, I've spent a lot of time at La Rocquiere School over the last 4 or 5 years. I know that the conversation is being had in the education department. They're blissfully aware of the increase in population, and that's what is driving it. It's not necessarily St Clement's per se, but the increase in population, and we're getting more than our fair share here. We won't be able to expand La Rocquiere School because I think there are moves afoot to build a sort of East of Ireland community and sports area, which is going to take some time, some money, and there will be some objections. But there is a deadly need for more secondary education space here, and primary is much more important because it has to be close to home. You simply can't transfer, in today's terms, little, small, young children from the other side of the island to get here. So St Clement's could be expanded by a little bit. You would need to build a whole new school, and we can commit to that, there's no doubt about it, but we need direction from the education department because they will have to pay for it. But I'm certainly up there as a fan of trying to get both more nursery space and also some primary school space. But I think education are actually on that case. I think, from my memory, I think they were saying for the next 20 years we'd probably need 3 more secondary schools and something like 6 more primary schools. But my facts might be wrong. I'm slightly out of date with La Rocquiere. I left about a year ago.
Right. Thank you very much. We've got the third set of questions now that have come through to me. And the first one of that pair is, it comes from Susan Gary, who lives in the area of Pontac. And she says, if we were to go back in time, who would you choose to have lunch with? But then, she says, Margaret Thatcher or Harold Wilson?
He's asking whether we're left or right.
So this one, Marcus, it's you to start off.
At the moment, Boris Johnson, I think.
That's not the question.
Yes, I know. All right, Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher, I think, yes.
Come on, you've got to give a bit
Why?
more
I don't know.
reasons.
I think she was a woman well ahead of her times. I mean, if you take the Falklands crisis, the mining crisis, and the situation she took over, she was quite a remarkable woman. Born above a shop, and came from nowhere, stormed through politics, took all comers on. She was the first of her kind, and she was a remarkable woman. The Falklands War, she took that on without blinking, and we then found ourselves with a new sort of respect the Union Jack situation. So she's a remarkable woman, and the miners' strike caused a lot of havoc, hurt, and unrest, which is dreadful. But the mining situation was not tenable. It was just mining was broken. It was costing the country fortunes, and now we can look back at the situation 40 years forward. We know we don't want coal. It was destroying the planet. So Margaret Thatcher any day.
Thank you very much. And Simon, I think this is quite a provocative question.
Indeed, I think it is. It's a very interesting question. You have two political giants, if you like, of our time with very opposing political views. The person I would have liked to have lunch with would be Harold Wilson. And the reason is I would like to know what made the man tick. I hold different political views from those that Harold Wilson holds, or held, should I say. And I think it's important to always talk to people with opposing views to you, to understand why they feel that way, what motivates them, what is it that gives them such strong, passionate political views. And I think that for me would be much more interesting than sitting down to lunch with Margaret Thatcher, because I doubt very much I would get a word in edgeways with her. I'm sure she would seek to preach to me about how brilliant she really was. I'm not saying she wasn't a bad leader, I just disagreed with some of her more extreme decisions that she made while she was in power. As to Mr. Troy's reminiscence about the Falklands War, I had a number of people who I knew who were in the Falklands War. None of them would have ever said it was a good idea, because most of them had lost limbs. I don't think necessarily the Falklands War is something to be held up as a wonderful moment in our history. It certainly did galvanise the country, but war is never a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have our sixth question, and I'm pleased to say it's from a person who's under 30. Remarkable. And this question is asked by Max Renoff, and he lives in the Samaria area. And his question is, a worrying amount of young people of my age, 22, plan to leave Jersey permanently, primarily due to the price of housing and rent. As Connotable, how will you work to allow young people to be able to stay in Jersey? So, Simon, enough time? Challenge this young person. Come on, what's your answer to that?
I doubt there's enough time this evening to answer that question properly. But I do think it's a very good question and a very important question. I have 2 children, well, they're young adults now, and I despair for them when I look at the price of houses. Unfortunately, in Jersey, we have a number of issues that affect house prices. The biggest one is supply and demand. Unless we're willing to build masses of houses all over greenfield sites and lay waste to whole areas of nature, we're not going to be able to have enough houses to supply the demand there currently is. And it all boils down to the problem we have with this government and the previous government of not being willing to tackle the question of immigration. Now, by immigration, I mean inward migration into the island. The problem we have with 22-year-olds now, they were born over here, they've gone to school over here, but they can't afford to live over here if they want to buy a property. So we've got to address 2 things. The first one is the question of inward migration. I'm not against immigration. I just think we have to manage it properly. The second one we have to do is to look at innovative ways that we can help younger people actually buy their first property. Previously, governments have looked at this and gone, we'll come up with first-time buyer schemes, we'll come up with states loan schemes, we'll come up with shared equity schemes. None of these have really worked properly. So perhaps we need to go back a step and go, do we, as an island, have to make a decision that we will follow the route of, say, Monaco or somewhere like that, where local people have priority over non-local people in the buying of property? I'm not saying that's the right idea. I just think we need to explore all opportunities, because if it continues this way, Jersey will have no young people left other than those who are coming in from outside to work in the finance industry. And that is not the way that I would like to see my island going. Thank you.
Thank you. And Marcus.
I'm very worried about the future for our young people, and I can see why they're going back either to the mainland or further afield. It's something that's never been answered by any of the last 3 generations of the states adequately. There was a system quite a while ago where quite a few people made a lot of money out of a system whereby there was a shared equity release for 20%, 10 to 20% of the capital value of the houses. And I think the states forgot to put their marker on that. I know somebody who flipped 2 houses in the late 80s and early 90s and went off to Spain and bought a house for cash because he could sell his house, take the entire money, including the 10 and 20% deposits, and clear off with it. So I think it's not been administered too well. I mean, I think what we're up against is a continual immigration situation, which can be sorted, but there has to be a mindset that sorts it. I think our seasonal workers have to go back after 6 to 9 months. It happened very adequately when I first started out. We used to go to a place in Conway House opposite the Pom d'Or, and we applied for permits for working people coming over from all sorts of nations, and they could stay for 6 months or 9 months, and they had to go home. They went back home with pockets full of money. When the people came over from the United Kingdom and they couldn't vouch for the fact that they had a job, or at least sufficient money in their pocket for 3 or 4 days, I think, lodgings, they were sent back on the mailboat. We have a situation here of creeping migration, which is caused by the fact that we're being too kind to other people and not looking after our own. Shared equity does work, and it can work so long as the states sign people up for it adequately. House share, a new design for flats. Sometimes our expectations are too high, but certainly we don't want a proliferation of buildings so we end up like Hong Kong. It's a huge discussion. It has to start with the planning and environment people, and we have to get there somehow. The only difference I see between the UK and here is whilst our cost of living is higher, so are our wages. So we have similar problems to the UK and Ireland and Scotland and Wales. But unfortunately, we're starting from a situation where a 1-bedroom flat is about £330,000 these days. And to raise £33,000, you're either going to have the bank of mum and dad, or you're going to have to do 2 jobs. Now, when my parents were when they got together, first of all, they lived in a flat and they saved money. Unfortunately, the expectation these days, you earn money and then you go out and spend it. You've got to earn your quota, and then I think the states will have to somehow get a scheme that works for the long term, and then you can grow with your salary and your life's expectations. But it's going to be very difficult. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Now we've got a question from Richard Jones. He lives in the area near the church. And his question is, St Clement's have lost numerous hotels over the years, with hoteliers selling out to developers for a quick profit rather than invest in the hotel, making it fit for the modern day tourism market. What would the candidates do to maintain the dwindling number of hotels in our parish and encourage investment in the market to promote tourism within the parish? It's your turn, Marcus, to kick off.
I'm quite delighted.
Yes.
So let me tell you about the fact that hoteliers aren't spending money on their hotels. What's happened in the last, say, 15 years, we had a double whammy. So if you take, for example, the Shakespeare, we were living there and working there, and we were doing about 60, 70 hours a week. And the place was well looked after. Various new legislation came in, which sorted out straight away. Then the government decided to put 5% GST at a time which was not very good economically in the whole of the UK. At the same time, rises the devil in the form of Booking.com, which has virtually taken over reservations around the world and all sorts of other internet booking systems as well. Now, I'm going to be perfectly clear on this. The reason hoteliers are selling up is because they're not making enough money to live, not because they're flipping their hotels to make a massive profit. That is an absolute fact. If you can't make enough money to live and you're working weekends and Christmases for 40 years, you have to do something about it. So we diversified. And I'm pleased to say the first thing on our agenda was to look after our staff. We wouldn't have had to do that had these double whammies come across. So let me explain to you the Booking.com system. We have a set tariff of, say it was £100 for a room. We've got 5% GST. And then Booking.com says to us, right, you give your tour operators a 20% discount. So that's down to £80. Then Booking.com says to you, we're not going to book with you unless you give us 16% off that. And all our clients, by the way, are paying by credit cards, and that's another 2% gone. That is your profit wiped out entirely. So what we did is, as I say, we diversified. We still run a hotel in town which we lease, and we are dealing with Booking.com, but the prices have gone up because we have to make sure that we look after our staff. Now, we transferred all our staff to other places. Nobody lost their jobs at the Shakespeare whatsoever. And in fact, it fortified our business, and we've got enough money to survive the pandemic, etc. Before that, myself and Diana's wages were frozen for 10 years. So, you don't see me driving around in a Rolls Royce. And also the expectation of guests changes. The building was old. It was gas-fired and oil central heating. So that's gone. And now you have a fabulous building, which wasn't going to be built in that particular style. It was going to be built like Moonrakers down at Archie Rondell. And we said to developers, you have to match up the environment. And they did. But that's the same with every other hotelier. I mean, the hoteliers, we are a community. We're like the American Indians. We don't want to go. We want to run hotels. That's what we do. But it comes to a stage when economic factors are completely and utterly against us. And we have to make arrangements that we don't necessarily like. So that's as far as the regeneration of the hotel business is concerned, that's going to be very difficult, but it is possible. I mean, we don't have any campsites at the moment. We don't have yurts. We now have Airbnb. That can be intensified. And there is now a proliferation of hotels from the UK with Premier Inns, etc. That will continue to happen. On the waterfront, they're going to build a hotel on the new development there. And I don't know that Jersey people are going to get hold of that. There we are.
Thank you very much, Marcus. And Simon, your views on hotels and regeneration?
Obviously, Mr. Troy knows a lot more about this particular area than I would ever say I do know. From an outsider's view, if you like, looking in, I think the Shakespeare to me provided an ideal example of what has happened to the tourism industry in Jersey. You had a hotel that needed investment. The tourism offering, or what tourists were looking for from their holidays, was changing. And there was not sufficient money around to make that investment in the hotel to change the offering so that more tourists came there. We all suffered from GST. You cannot say that particularly for tourism it was a bad thing more than any other industry. We all pay GST. And I think really what we're looking at is tourism as an industry, as a market sector for Jersey, really worth the government doing anything about it? Unfortunately, the statistics say not. We have to be sensible and look at what we have and what we can do with what we have. The hospitality trade, which includes tourism, restaurants and bars, only accounts for, I think it is 4.2% of GVA. Now, GVA is the new way of measuring GDP. So as an important part of our income as an island, it's not, unfortunately, that important. But if you strip restaurants and bars out, which locals do use, what does that leave pure hotel business as? Now, being generous, it's probably only about 2% of the total GVA of the island. Surely, we should be looking at new areas that we can invest in and go, unfortunately, Jersey's heydays as a tourist attraction, a tourist centre, are gone. There will always be the need for Premier Inns. There will always need for, say, five-star hotels. But the middle offering, that's gone, and that went years ago. So I think we have to be sensible and look at what are we going to do with the limited funds available to us as a government to ensure that Jersey, as an island, continues to grow and continues to move forward. But unfortunately, I think the days of tourism are over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. I've noticed it's 5 minutes to 8, so hopefully at 8 o'clock we're going to dedicate some time to questions from those under 21. So I've got another lot of questions coming in, but I don't think it's been specified whether those people are under 21 or not. So we will ask the next lot of questions for the more mature parishioners. And then perhaps if the tech guys can give me some questions from some younger people. I'm also noticing that on one of the screens we've got lots of screens of people who are keying into us with the names of people. Now, my eyesight's not as good as it should be, and I'm not certain how it's going to be decided which of the people are going to be asked to answer their questions direct to us. We thought it would be nice to jazz up the evening a little bit by having not just me boringly putting it to and fro, but to actually ask some people to ask their questions online. But I'm not certain how we're going to choose that, so perhaps somebody can send me some information on that one. If I can thank all our tech guys, because they really are giving me the questions so far, but I'm not quite certain how we're going to get the live people. So I will then turn to the fifth lot of questions, which we've got, which is... with the success of the Brass Souls event over by Lohock Tower last week, how would the candidates feel about more live events being organised and held on this part of parish land? And the question has been asked by Malcolm White, who lives in Pontosaur Lane. So on that one, it's Simon. I think you're the one to
It is
answer that
indeed.
one.
Thank
Yeah.
you. At the moment, obviously, a lot of people are very concerned about going to any live event. And that's a shame, because I think live events, particularly music events like that, do an awful lot to bring a community together. One of the things that St Clement's lacks, unfortunately, at the moment is a village-type environment where people look upon it as being the centre of the parish. That's possibly because the parish has, over the years, split into really two halves. You have the west of the parish and the east of the parish. Once the COVID situation has resolved itself, one way or the other, I think the parish can do an awful lot to start promoting and regenerating live events like that. If we have areas of parish land we can use, we should do. We need to be able to encourage, as a parish administration, people to come out after the COVID scare is over, and nobody knows how long that is going to take. But if we can be part of that, if we can encourage people to gather once again, to enjoy themselves, to express themselves through music or whatever it may be, and we can provide parish facilities or areas of land, and we can go, there, use it. It is parish land. You are parishioners. You should be allowed to use it. I think it would do an awful lot of good for the community spirit of the parish. And I think it would also show other parishes maybe the way, that this is the way to rekindle community spirit in a parish, which over the past 18 months has taken a lot of beating. A lot of people are scared of going out. A lot of people are very worried about mixing with other people. And I think to promote these sort of events would be a wonderful idea to regenerate and rekindle the community spirit that this parish has shown over the years. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Simon. Now, I notice it's 8 o'clock now. We were going to ask for the young people to come in, but Marcus hasn't responded yet. So apologies to the...
No, that's right.
well, I was wondering, would you like to answer now, and I'll ask the...
Whichever way you like. Sue.
Right, well, I know the technical people wanted to start the questions for young people at 8 o'clock.
That's fine.
So I have got some questions for young people. Now, Marcus, if I forget to ask you to respond, please remind me, okay? Because we may get very excited about what these young people are going to say. Well, I hope we are, because they are the next generation. Now, the question I've got here... Oops. My screen's gone blank now. Can I see? Let me just have a look. It was there just now. Ah, right, here we are. Young people questions. This is a question that's been put by Oliver and Harry Kidman. They live in the area of Green Island. Their age is 16. I don't know whether they're twins or not. But anyway, their question is, a recent local survey concluded young people expressed need for affordable sporting and recreation activities, whilst identifying a lack of easy access to this provision for the under-18s. Acknowledging the impact on our community of antisocial behaviour and health issues of habits such as drugs and alcohol, please may we have the candidates' views on future investment as to the youth of today, both in St Clement and wide. Now, that's quite a long question, and the next person who's going to be starting will be Marcus. Would you like me to read the question again,
No,
Marcus?
that's
Are you
fine. That's a great question, Oliver and Harry. There is not enough for you to do. I get that completely. I think that Liscay Youth Club is open sometimes, and then there's La Rocchia School, and that would see. And apart from, I think there's a Scout unit down at Greve de Zet. There's not enough. On my manifesto, I've mentioned this in a brief way. I would want to form a youth league, and the youth league will take the same sort of terms as a club I used to belong to years ago, between 15 and 21-year-olds, called the Leo Club of Jersey, which was part charity and part meeting and part visiting, raising money and helping to do, for example, old people's gardens, painting, if they were not well enough to do that sort of stuff themselves, doing errands, etc., etc. But this youth league will be bigger than that. It would need a base, and it could start off here. It must not be religiously based, and it must not be politically based, but there would be discussion groups, there would be visits to outside. We would visit the Ramsar, we could visit the JEC, but it would be run by the youth of the parish, and it might be copied as successfully as the St Clement's community support system in other parishes. But you have to start from the very get-go, and it would take the form of whatever the young people wanted it to take. But it would be sort of looked after, if you like, by, say, 3 to 5 of retired pensioners with a good story to sell or with experience in particular fields, and they could just have an overview and help things along. That would help, and that would encourage more wellness and life experiences. And they could help, for example, wouldn't it be wonderful if somebody, like there's the gentleman I know who's got a veggie patch, if the parish bought a vegetable patch and it bought also some more green fields and turned them over to wildflowers, honey Some guy teaches them how to make beehives. Some guy teaches them foraging for herbs and such like. So a youth league would be a start, but there are not enough places to meet. And we need to work on that. I'm disappointed when driving around on my little scooter around Liscay in the Marais. I think it's desolate there. There is some green space, but there needs to be more. Now, on some occasions, I think it's the case that if the parish can't help financially, we have to raise money elsewhere, and that's achievable. But that's my starting base anyway. I remember when my young girls, they're not young anymore, 19 and 23, there's that sort of pause between 15 and 18 where you can't go clubbing and you can't go drinking and you're stuck in this sort of little bubble of nothingness. So we must find more stuff for you to do. And I'm up for it. You can come and speak to me anytime.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Simon.
Thank you. It's a very good question indeed from Oliver and Harry. You're 16-year-old. I bet the last thing you want is old fogies like me telling you what you want to do. So I would suggest you tell us. Isn't that the point of it? Whilst one can see some benefits to Mr. Troy's suggestion of a youth league, I would have said that already exists. It's called the Boy Scouts. How do we invest in the youth of today? The only way is if you tell us what types of things you want to be provided to you. What do you enjoy doing? What kind of things do you look forward to doing? Is it sport? Is it just recreation? Is it more just of a youth club type environment? There's no point in me sitting here telling you you should want to be doing this, you should be doing that. It's an awfully long time ago when I was 16. And I'm afraid when I was 16, I discovered the joys of motorbikes, and nearly killed myself on one of them. So I'm not suggesting you do that. But maybe, as 16-year-olds, you might go, is there anywhere that we could learn to drive a car before we were 17? So that when we're 17, we can pass our driving test quickly. You come to us and go, is there anyone and anywhere who could teach us that? This is just an idea, by the way. I'm not necessarily saying it's a brilliant thing. But that's the type of thing I wanted to do when I was 16. I was very lucky. I learnt to drive on a tractor. My uncle was a farmer and he taught me how to drive a tractor at 16. But you've got to tell us. There's no point in us planning to do things that you are not going to want to do. So that's what I would say. Come and talk to us. Come and tell us what you and your friends are thinking about, and we'll see if we can find a solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Now we have another question from a young person. This is a question from Esther Brint, who lives in Cosy Lane. She's aged 20, and her question is, what amenities would the candidates like to introduce in the parish? So, Simon, would you like to kick off?
Amenities in the parish. That's an incredibly wide-ranging subject. I think as a parish we have suffered over the years by having massive housing developments without any thought given to what do the people who live in these developments actually do in their spare time. It's all very well saying we're going to put X number of houses in, we're going to put this in, but we're not actually as a parish thinking any further than where do they live. Amenities can range from complex, expensive things such as, say, a swimming pool in the east of the island. We don't have one. A sports hall in the east of the island. We don't have one. But we couldn't do those alone as a parish. We'd have to work closely with central government and central funds to try and find the money to do that. So we'd need to speak to the other parishes as well. Now that's not impossible. We can do it. The other amenities I think that sometimes are overlooked and certainly you've seen a resurgence of them over the past few years, is very simple things like allotments. The parish owns land, or can rent land, lease land, that it could provide to parishioners as allotments. Now, a lot more people are thinking about growing their own, thinking about what they're actually eating, where it comes from, what's been sprayed on it, and I know that there is a huge demand amongst certain people for such allotments, but they can't afford to go out and rent a field off somebody. The parish could. So it's just one idea. The parish could go and rent a field, split it into allotments, set up allotment associations that ran themselves. It could work. So that's two sides of amenities, but there are many, many other amenities as well. And again, I would stress, parishioners need to come and speak to their constable. They need to tell us what they are looking for in their parish. And as Connotable, I would be more than willing to talk to anybody about any subject like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. And Marcus.
Well, there's a list, of course. A pool, a banging youth club, a gym, allotments, bowling green, the list goes on, and we would help anybody that come forward with land or buildings or anything of that nature that we could take that forward, but it's going to be extremely difficult. Like I say, the Larocchia School is being talked about as being a new sort of fitness hub. They've got too much out west. We have to go past town to do anything significant as far as training and swimming, etc. is concerned. We desperately need a swimming pool over here on this side of the island because everybody can use it, all generations. It makes me wonder sometimes. We're surrounded by sea, and half the kids can't swim. That's very dangerous apart from anything else, but the physical activity is great for them. Not enough PE, I think, is taught in schools, and we need to put that out there. The cycle path situation needs to be extended and coordinated. But that's going to be extremely difficult. You might have to resort to compulsory purchase. But if anything becomes available, I believe the parish should be onto it straight away. Anything to do with buildings, derelict or not, green grass areas that are not being used specifically for agriculture and are not going to be built on, we could have a bowling green. You know, I believe the bowling club on West Mount are in terrible trouble. Perhaps that could go at the back end of FB Fields, where there's a controversy as to what's going to happen there, whether it's going to be five-a-side football or whether it's going to be netball. The residents around there are worried about noise. But what peaceful sort of pastime is better than bowling? And it's a significant amount of land, and it's flat. So that is a good starting point. But the list can grow. It depends on what people want. But those are my top ones. Thank you.
Right, thanks very much, Marcus. Now, that's our time that we'd allocated to the under-21s. But no one yet, apparently, has been brave enough to ask us to let them ask their questions live on video. Now, what about you young people out there? Come on, you all know how all this stuff works. Why not show us oldies how you can do it? Why don't you put yourself forward to ask the question yourself? I'm certain you're absolutely bored stiff with what I'm saying. Of course, I wouldn't suggest that for the candidates, but come on, either some young people put some questions, or if you feel bold enough, failing which, I'll just have to carry on asking the questions myself, which is fine enough. I'm quite good at asking questions. Well, I think that anyway, but let's see how we go. Now, the next lot of questions I've got, there's one, just to let the tech people know, I'm just jogging back to the fourth set of questions. One of the questions, I think, now did I ask this question? I don't think I did. What is each candidate's view on whether the Connotable should hold a seat in the States Chamber? Have I asked that question? No, in which case then, Marcus, come on, what are you going to say about that? Are you going to be...
Marcus is there.
I'm sorry, I keep going the wrong way. How are you going to do it, Marcus?
I'll take it.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Oh, you didn't respond
Oh, I
to
didn't
the other
res-
question.
oh, to-
Sorry, yes, come on.
What do you want me to do first? The music?
Respond to the first question and then you
First
can go on to
question
the
was,
position of Connotable.
First question was Malcolm White about brass events appearing on the common, and I've just written more, more, more. Anybody wants to do that sort of thing, we will break our backs trying to accommodate you, either inside the parish hall or outside or any space that we own. More, more, more. It cheers people up. I was canvassing on that night, and I thought it would be naff if I mingled amongst the crowd giving out leaflets. So I sat on the wall and had a great time listening to everything that was going on. And there were hundreds of people there. And it was a great experience, and everybody was having fun. So more, more, more. That's what I say, Mr. Malcolm White. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Right, now we're going back to our other questions that we've got. The one that I'd overlooked, which is a question that's been put by Rob Beaumont of La Petite-Sainte. And his question is, what is each candidate's view on whether the Connotard should hold a seat in the States Chamber? So would you like to start on that one,
Absolutely,
Marcus?
yes. Yes, most definitely. I think the Connotable is the person in the parish that has the pulse of the population. I think he spends more time looking after the people. I think the conversation both ways. I think that what the constable uses or has to use more than any politician, and I'm not a politician, I have to make that absolutely clear. There's a part of the anatomy politicians don't use, and that's their ears. And my situation here would be the office door is always open, and I'll make you a cup of tea. But the constable has the parish pulse. He knows what's going on. He knows what people think and feel. Above all of the parish States Chamber. So I think he should always be in the States. His role may change, but like I say, he's the man that knows what's going on amongst his flock, if you like. If I was David Shaw. He knows what's going on and what the people think, and his job is to communicate that back to the states of Jersey. And if he's not doing that, he's not a very good constable. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And Simon?
The question of whether the Connotable should sit in the States Assembly is one that has been dragging on for quite a number of years and debated many, many times. My position has always been, in an ideal world, no, the Connotable should not sit in the States. In an ideal world, the Connotable should be spending all of his time and effort looking after the parish, heading up the parish administration, and working within the parish. Unfortunately, we don't live in an ideal world. Unfortunately, the deputies of this parish should have been looking after the parish's best interests. They have both decided to become members of the executive. One Minister for Treasury, the other one Assistant Minister for Treasury. So basically their hands are tied because they decided to take, to coin a phrase, the Chief Minister's shilling. They can no longer openly, strongly and robustly protect the interests of the parish because they have decided they wish to be politicians first and foremost and parish representatives second. Also, we're facing an unknown time ahead of us in June 2022 when all states members, other than the constables, become deputies. Probably all of those deputies will seek to join a political party. Now, what happens if that political party's manifesto is to build 2,500 new homes and the party decides it's going to be in St Clement's? What will the deputy of St Clement's say? He'll either have to leave the party or vote with the party. That's how party politics works. So until all of that has settled down, until we have seen how the new electoral system is going to work, the constable needs to remain in the States Assembly. Having been a deputy for nearly 4 years, I've seen, how can I put it, the highs and lows of the constables being in the States Assembly. But at the moment, they have to stay for the safety and security of the parish and the parishioners. Long term, I would hope that eventually the constables can leave the States Assembly. and concentrate on the parish. But at the moment, no, they have to stay. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Marcus?
I've answered.
Oh, right, there we are. That's fine. The next question is one from the fifth set of questions. Now, this is a provocative question for you all. It's a question that's been asked by Beth Lloyd. She lives by Lamar Slip, and her question is quite simple. Where do the candidates stand with regard to the new hospital? Not a very long question, but I suspect it might be quite a long answer. How are you going to answer it, Simon?
Okay. In 2018, I was chairman of the Future Hospital Review Panel, which was set up by the Chairman's Committee of the Scrutiny Panels. And I worked very, very closely with the civil service, politicians, planners, looking at the future hospital. At the time, it was going to be Gloucester Street. And I was only one of 3 politicians who voted against that site as being the preferred site. Why? Because it just wouldn't have worked. We are now moving forward 3 years, looking at a situation where the new hospital site, the preferred site, is Overdale. And the new spend is somewhere in the region of £800 million. In my opinion, Overdale is the wrong site. In my opinion, it has been chosen on a set of criteria that, when matched against other sites, doesn't stack up. I personally would have preferred a 2-site option to maintain emergency and accident facilities, day surgery, clinics down in Gloucester Street, and have the main hospital in St Saviour's, at St Saviour's Hospital. But obviously that decision is long gone by, but I don't see why we can't continue to challenge it. What really worries me about the new hospital is the amount of money that is being envisaged to be spent. Back in 2018, the cost to build the new hospital at Gloucester Street was £450 million. When you included the borrowing and funding costs to raise that money, it came to just under £1 billion. We're now talking about the government wanting to spend £800 million on build costs, factor in borrowing and funding costs, and that's going to come somewhere nearer £1.5 to £1.7 billion. It is wrong to harness future generations with that level of debt. It is wrong to spend that amount of money on a world-class hospital that is not needed for the island. It's not needed for our current and future health needs. And I fear it's being built to attract health tourism. It's built to attract people coming over to Jersey to have elective surgery, cosmetic surgery. And I also think it's become a vanity project for the current government, and particularly Senator Farnham, who's the political lead of it. They are starting, I think, to wonder whether they have made a mistake. But they cannot now, for the sake of their own face, if you want to call it that, change their decision. We have wasted so much money getting to this point in time. The government has yet to put a spade in the ground. Something has to be done to stop this. Something and somebody has to stand up and go, enough's enough, stop. Because if we don't do it now, more money is going to be wasted, and we will end up with a hospital costing us probably more £2 billion in about 10 years' time. That's totally wrong. And you need somebody with experience in the States, like myself, to actually be able to stand up and argue with government, who refuse to accept any kind of scrutiny whatsoever at the moment. We have to do something about it. It has to be stopped now before we end up with even more debt. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Simon. Marcus.
it's a tricky question for me because I've not been in the States for the duration of the process of talking and planning. But let me be clear, there's no planning permission granted for a new hospital at the moment, so you can go backwards. For my money, the site is the wrong site. I prefer St Saviour's Hospital. I believe a new road can be built up at the side of Queen's Valley Dam. I think what everybody's worried about more than whether the hospital is going to go ahead, I think the powers that be have decided the hospital will go ahead, and I think they've already decided, because they're buying up some houses in the Westmount area, I think they've decided that it will be in that area, in the Overdale area. I think what people have forgotten, and just to placate the situation just a little bit, everybody's forgotten about the value of the old hospital. If you buy a house, you sell your old one, and that goes towards your new house. The value of the old hospital is probably worth 6 buildings in the new international finance centres. The value of the old hospital done up, and this is the key, is probably about £300 million. So the bill comes down. I don't agree that it would reach anywhere near £2 billion. I do like the French idea, although I haven't been involved in the nature of this business, call it political or otherwise, for very long. I've been watching, and I've been worried like everybody else. But there was a situation put across a little while ago that a French company could come over here and build the new hospital for something like £200 million yet less. And I do realise that people are worried about a load of French people marching around town. We're talking about management. The Horizon building is being built by a joint venture between the International the Jersey Development Company and Legrand from France. But it's their management and surveyors and architects that come over here to work on a fairly full-time basis. The vast majority of the staff who are building the project are from Jersey, and there's a huge lot of employment, as we know, in the building business. But as far as the hospital is concerned, it's, I think, in the wrong place, but I think it's going to go ahead. If people are worried about the finances, there'll be money to come back in from the old hospital site, and I actually believe that you should do a swap. I think if I pass over to the Fort Regent situation, where they want to do a job at Fort Regent's never going to make any money. It's losing £1 million a year. It's never going to make any money when people volunteer to go up there and then pay a fee at the door and pay for opera tickets or what have you. We're too lazy in Jersey. Unless it's on our doorstep, we won't go. So we need to move something up at Fort Regent that is stationary, that might be the Highlands College, where you have to be there all year round. And then Highlands College can be left over for development for first-time buyers, etc., etc. And then your units that you were going to build at Fort Regent will be a fantastic area on the ground floor of the old hospital. And that's where your theatres are, your art centres are, your galleries are, your cafe society. And top floor is fabulous, fabulous flats that you'll sell off. So there is money to be saved on the hospital. Also, I think the danger people are worried about is the cost. You can buy bonds on the international market where you borrow a significant amount of money. We have a rating, I think, is AA minus with the something called Standard and Poor's. And these guys do their homework on international currency markets and jurisdictions. And Jersey's up there with the richest countries in the world. They can borrow money internationally at about 2.5% to 3%. But you need to make sure that it's not left there for the next generation, the next generation, next generation after. So it needs to be a sinking bond so that you pay off some of the capital over various periods of time. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Marcus. Just to remind our viewers that it's now 8:30, so we've got half an hour to go. So those of you who are being shy and retiring, come on, pluck your courage up and see whether you answer a question on screen. Now, I have been told that apparently we've got one brave person who does want to ask a question on screen, and he will be a little bit later on. But at the moment, I'm going to turn to what are let me look at this one. Yes. So our on-screen person will be after this question. So first of all, we've got a question from Solange Ribot. She's of Green Island. And she says, the Connotable is first and foremost elected for the parish. If elected, how do the candidates see themselves reaching out and connecting with those parishioners who may not necessarily be visible and at the forefront of the parish life, but nonetheless have real everyday concerns and may need the help and support of their Connotable? It's quite a long question there, but Marcus.
I would beef up the community support scheme. I'd also have our youth league active, and in fact the youth league can work in conjunction with the community support team. We would have an open door policy, as I say here. Constable will be available, and cups of tea, pieces of cake, and I'm quite happy to go and visit. I visited people already who are upset because the next door neighbour's trees, which belongs to another organisation in the States, I think it's Property Services, trees are overlooking a close which belongs to the States, and nobody's doing anything about it, and things like that. But they're real to people, and so they must be addressed. And that's what I would do. It's an open door parish hall is what I would run. And I'm very pleased to see everybody of any age at all, whether old, young, or what have you. I'm always listening. I'm game for any idea, and we'll discuss it and see what we can do. I hate the fact I met a couple when I was canvassing. Gentleman's waiting for 2 knees. He's been waiting for a year, and he was told last week he's got to wait at least another 3 months. And because of COVID, he doesn't want to go out, so he's already retracting into his shell. And I think that's the case where we send somebody out and we go and pick him up and his wife, because his wife doesn't drive, and we take him for an ice cream down to Goree. Or we take him for tea somewhere up at St Martin's Tea Rooms. The gentleman needs to go out. That's all he wants. Old people want contact with people, and you can bridge the generations by sending a couple of youngsters out. We've seen it with nursing homes. Where nursing homes in the UK, there's a series in the UK where youngsters under 7 are going to visit nursing homes, and the old age pensioners in the nursing homes can't wait for that Wednesday to come around. So that is what I would do. I would match up all the generations, and it would work. I love to hear stories from older people. I love to hear stories from younger people, and I want to know what their expectations are. And no, I would beef up the community support team, and I would alliance that with the youth league and anything else that's going on. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Marcus. Simon.
Thank you. One of the biggest problems St Clement's has as a parish is we've got a very wide range of family types, income types, whether you own your own house, whether you rent your house from Andium, whether you're stuck in one of the tower blocks at Le Marais, or whether you've got a beautiful house overlooking the sea at Le Hoc. And I think the questioner is quite right. There is a whole section of our parish who would really benefit from feeling included, feeling wanted, and feeling part of something. The biggest problem is most of these people don't want charity as they see it. And they're very proud, some of them. And I think if we centred our activities on the parish hall and what we could do here, we'd actually be missing the point, because those people wouldn't come to the parish hall. What St Clement's misses, I think, is a village-type heart, where we have, like some of the St John's Village, I'll use an example, you have shops, you have a bar, you have a chemist. St Clement's doesn't have that anymore. We used to, but that's gone. So how do we reach out to these people? I think it's going to be more a case of us going to them than expecting them to come to us. It's first of all identifying who they are. And for that we will need everybody's help in the parish. We will need to know who somebody's worried about, who somebody's concerned about. Then we'll need to see what is the best thing we can do for them. And we're going to have to go to them. To expect them to come here, I don't think will work. The community sport team does great work, but a lot of people think it's only for old people. That's not true, but that's people's perception. So perhaps we need to find ways in which we can publicise the work that the community support team does to make people feel this isn't about charity, this is about being part of your parish. And that's the message I think I would like to get across if elected, that you're actually part of a much bigger family, you're part of a parish, and families help each other. Families are there for each other. It's going to be difficult, but I think we can do it. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Simon. Now we have an innovation. We've actually got someone who's prepared to ask a question live. And so I hope that the technology is going to follow us with us. The question that the person wants to ask live it's from Phil Hurd, and he lives in the area of Green Road. It's about the parochial honorary system. Are you hearing me, Phil? And can you show you are alive and connected?
He's there.
Yeah.
Is that you, Phil?
Gentlemen,
Sorry, can you ask a question?
I can ask a question as long as you hear it.
Yeah.
My main question is, the honorary system is a very old system, and I would like to know the opinion of the candidates, one on that system with particular regard to the honorary police, and where the candidates would see themselves supporting both the honorary system within the parish and the honorary police, because there are currently a lot of outside influences that are trying to, shall we say, reduce that system within the parish. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Phil. And you realise you've just made history. Certainly for all of us here. And let's hope some more people feel bold enough to come forward. So I think, am I right in saying, Simon, you are the next one to be starting off?
As I said in my introductory speech, I fully support the parochial system. I think it's a vital, important part of Ireland life. It is a very old system, but that's one of the things that makes it so good. When you go overseas and you talk to people, particularly about the honorary police system we have in Jersey, they are quite surprised that we actually have two police forces. The problem is that the honorary police force in Jersey has come under attack over the past few years from a number of different areas. And I think one of the issues we have is that people don't quite understand the original concept of the honorary police. Now, maybe one of the problems is that the honorary police themselves, having chosen to go round in uniform effectively, are moving away from what the original concept of the honorary police was. I mean, I remember my uncle, Harry Baudin, who was chef de police in St Clement's for quite a few years, when I was a young boy, going around with him in his van, and suddenly he'd have to go off and do something to do with the honorary police. But it was all about, you turned up, dressed in your normal clothes, you dealt with what was normally a domestic incident, and it kind of calmed down a bit. I think one of the problems has been, particularly in domestic incidents, the sight of a uniform, and most people can't distinguish between the honorary police and the state's police, but the sight of the uniform can antagonise situations. And maybe we need to have a rethink about how do we portray the honorary police to the public. I think the honorary police are a brilliant service. I think they do amazing work, and I think they are undervalued, under-supported and misunderstood. Now, I think the role of the constable is to correct those three areas. No longer do the honorary police report to the constable, but the constable plays a very, very important role in promoting them, supporting them, and getting the message across to the rest of the parish that the honorary police are there to do a job which at times is very difficult, at awful times of the day and night, in awful weather, and they ask for nothing but a little bit of respect from parishioners. That's where the constable can help. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Marcus?
Well, I'm a huge fan of the honorary police, and I will fight tooth and nail to make sure it's retained. I think also your own development has changed. I think you've got about 24 when you're full strength. That's quite a lot of police out there in a very small parish by square mile, which is fantastic. But I do understand that you've got more community outreach these days. In the old days, I'm looking at a picture up there, I think it's Ernie Watson. I was dragged in here to see Ernie Watson when I was a kid. I can't remember what I did wrong. And I was told off, and it was a bit of a Dixon of Dock Green type experience. I got a telling off, and I was scared stiff of him, mind you, and I was 16 and quite brash. And what you're doing these days is you're not hauling them in to try and find the parents. You're trying to understand what's going on behind the scenes. And I think that's quite remarkable. I think your patience is truly something I'm in awe of, all you guys. And the amount of hours that you work saves the taxpayer, let's be perfectly honest, a huge amount of money. Where you have your problem is when you're actually doing your job and you're stopping traffic because you want to inspect the vehicles, and you get some numpty who knows his van is crook, and you get grief for it. So a little bit maybe of more marketing and advertising to help soften the blow and to also improve the image. And that's all you need. But I think that the situation here, you're part of the outreach situation, which we're talking about as well, with the community support and also potentially this youth league or what have you. You will let people know inside the parish hall what's going on outside the parish hall when you come across somebody who perhaps wants to drive and perhaps really shouldn't. Or on the other side of the coin, who just needs somebody to phone him up and say, look, how about going out? And we go and pick people up. So you're part of the main body of the community, as I feel it, and I would fight tooth and nail to keep the honorary system island-wide going for as long as possible. It's a great asset.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, well, it's just coming up for 8:45, so another 15 minutes to go. And what has happened? We now have a whole rush of people who want to ask questions actually on screen. Well done. Congratulations. I'm certain you're very bored with all of us and liven it up. And the first question we have here is from Marie-Louise Backhurst, who lives in the region of Le Bourg. And she would like to ask a question about the parish's large population. So are you with us, Marie-Louise? Can you hear us?
Good evening, Mrs. Permain.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Bray and Mr. Troy. This parish is incredibly densely populated, and I would like to know the candidates' views on future development in the parish.
Right, so Marcus?
Like-for-like development is okay. Green fields are out. There's now a new planning phrase which says, it doesn't actually say you can't build on green fields. It says, for example, the expectation is you can't build on green fields, which frightens me completely. Green fields are out. We're running out of space. We're doing more than our fair share. They're going to rename us one of these days. We're going to be called St Clement. Because we're taking the sprawl from St Helier. I don't think the other parishes are doing their fair share, and we have to look at it as an island-wide situation, not just St Clement's. There is every possibility of doing an immigration control situation. We don't need as many people in the finance industry as we used to. Some of that work, a large proportion of that work can be outsourced therefore preventing large volumes of people coming over to run trust companies or be deputies of trust companies, finance companies, wealth companies, etc., etc. And there's also a movement coming in which is called AI, which is artificial intelligence. Now, speaking to some of the guys in town in some of these big corporations, they are actually saying that in a very few years' time, artificial intelligence will do a lot of the lower grade finance work. So the population will slow down inevitably at that stage. But in the meantime, we've got a huge problem. No building in St Clement's whatsoever, only like-for-like buildings. So, for example, if the parish hall was torn down, something very similar has got to go back up. If the pub was torn down, something very similar has got to go back up with the same footprint, the same square footage, etc., etc. The other thing is we've got too many 11Ks coming over here. 11Ks have got buckets of money, and we're letting too many over here. And they're buying up expensive houses, but also moderate houses in these terms. We don't need so many of them, and I would make them pay a lot more money and a lot more tax and put them off a little. Some of the businesses, some of the houses that they own are for sale. There's about 375 11K houses for sale, and they've been stuck in that bracket for a long, long time. Those places could be used for community hubs. They could be used for doctors and dentists and veterinary surgeries and things like that. So we need to spread the load further afield, and that's my view. But no green fields to be built on, and no agricultural land to be turned over for building. That's where I am.
Thanks very much. And Simon.
St Clement's has become over the years an incredibly densely populated parish. I hate to say it, but I can actually say at my age, I remember when all that was fields. I will never say no more building in the parish of St Clement, because I think you have to be realistic and sensible, because where will my children be able to live? I'm against greenfield site development, but I think we have to be sensible and logical and go, let us look as a parish at those sites that we have, which I term brownfield sites. By those, I mean, for example, old greenhouse sites. I know that there is a push to say that's agricultural land. You're not allowed to build on agricultural land. But there are some sites that have been standing empty for 20 years, probably more. The owner cannot afford to clear the site because to return it to agriculture requires probably about 5 to 10 foot of the topsoil stripping away and being replaced because of all the contaminants that happened during the time when the greenhouses were running. So we've got to find a compromise. And I think that compromise can be found between the parish, the landowner, and the end owners of those houses. I'm not talking about large-scale developments. I'm talking about sympathetic developments, small scale, to fit in with the nature around them. So we're going to encourage more open spaces, more allotments, more trees being grown, more hedgerows being replanted. But we have to be sensible and say we cannot say no more building in St Clement, because we do have a growing population. Even if we said no more immigration, no inward migration whatsoever, the population still will grow, because my children will one day have children. So you have to be sensible. I think, unfortunately, over the years, St Clement's is being used as an extension of St Helier. It's become a dormitory parish, essentially. And that possibly has been down to a lack of will to fight against big developments in the west of the parish over the years. I certainly am against large-scale developments. I certainly am against stealing green fields, but I'm not against any further development in the parish, because in today's world, we need to be realistic and sensible and be able to find a compromise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. And thank you, Marie-Louise, for being so brave to ask that question. And you're encouraging others, because we now have another live questioner. This is I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Luci Montenegro, who lives in the Pontac area, and he wants to ask a question about whether or not, if elected, you would take a position in government. Would you like to ask your question? Is it Luci or...
Luci, it's short for Luciano.
Oh, okay, Luci, thank
Fine.
you very much. Please ask
Yeah.
your question of the candidates.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Yeah, the simple question is, I know you've both touched on it tonight, but I would feel that, as you said yourself, the constable is a full-time job, so you will be in the States by the nature of your position, but would you say that you're not going to take any ministerial positions if offered to you? Could you just clarify that point for us?
Okay, thank you very much, Luci. Thank you
you.
for asking. And Simon, I think it's your turn. Perhaps I might say it's 10 to 9 now, so I think well, depending on how long it might take, it might be our last question, unless somebody's going to come in with some more that are urgent. But we're getting close to 9 o'clock.
Okay. A very good question. If elected, would I take a position in government? No, I would not. And that's for two reasons. One, I don't think by taking a position in government, any Connotable could remain independent. Whilst collective responsibility has in theory been dropped, there is still a whip, if you like, going on within the executive of government. And I think that a constable needs to be totally independent, totally able to make his or her minds up based on the facts and the arguments being put forward to them. The second reason is that I think our current government has been one of the worst governments this island has had for many, many generations. They have let this island down. They have misled not only the states but the island. And I feel that it's become now a situation whereby if a referendum was put to the whole island that said, do you have confidence in your current government? I think the overwhelming answer would be no, we do not. But I do not think a constable should take any ministerial or assistant ministerial position. Otherwise, they lose their independence. Thank you.
All right. And Marcus.
I think there's a lot of work to do in the parish, to be perfectly honest. I think that's a full-time job in itself. I would assist in other areas. I'm not afraid of hard work, and I could take on some responsibilities, but I would not head a major department because I think that would be too onerous, and I think that would be letting the parish down. I would assist in any other way that I could, given the time after parish affairs are looked after. But I can't see what that's going to be perfectly honest. Scrutiny jobs, possibly. There's skill sets I have that might lend itself to helping along that way, but definitely not a major committee. We've seen too many people take them on and then resign. What that says about those people and those committees, I've no idea. That's, people need to investigate that. Why do people take on housing and then resign, and education and then resign? We need good flow. Education department needs somebody that they can rely on, and so does housing. So I'm not going to take on a major committee. Parish comes first, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Marcus. Now it's 5 to 9. I think we've just got an opportunity for one last question, a quickie question. Now my predicament is one of the questions I've got here is a young person. He's 24, and the other one, I won't say how old he is, but he's not 24. But he wants to speak in person. Now, which one do I choose? The one who wants to speak in person or the young one? Well, you might have guessed, I'm going to ask the young one. I'm going to do the young one, and I'm going to ask the question for him because let's just get this in as a quickie, guys. This is a question from Grieg Full. He lives in the Samry area, and he says, prior candidates in St Clement have promised to engage with parishioners through holding things such as monthly surgeries and then when elected don't fulfil that promise. How will you both ensure you continually engage with parishioners if elected? Now then, Marcus, would you like to start your swan
No
song?
problem at all. I do know that monthly surgeries have been put out there by several candidates in the past, and they've not happened. I have done a little thing, and I'm still doing it at the moment. I've been setting up a little perch on the wall by Sophie's Cafe on the Common, and I put it out there on Facebook that I'll be there between 1 and 2 every day until the election day. And if anybody wants to come to talk to me, they can come and talk to me. That's my sort of style. But my phone number is available. People can talk to me anywhere, and I prefer actually to go out and meet you, because if you've got something to show me, don't tell me, show me, and we can have a chat, and I'll come and see you. That is my style. I'm always available, and I hate it when people are in trouble and they're not being looked after. I don't like it at all, and I'm quite capable of giving a robust sort of push to any department that's not looking after our young and old and any other parishioner. That's my stance.
Thank you very much. And Simon.
Yes, interesting question, and I think it was a very, very thinly veiled attack on myself. I promised to hold monthly surgeries. You're quite right. When I was elected as a deputy in 2014, did I hold any? No, I didn't. Why? Because basically I didn't have the time. And also, I was going around talking to people, getting people to come and talk to me. And a lot of people were saying, we much prefer you coming to talk to us and us being able to talk to you than actually coming into, say, the parish hall. A lot of them have been in trouble, either with the police, the honorary police, social security, and feel very threatened by these sort of surroundings. I was working as a deputy at the time, certainly 7 days a week, and probably 80 hours, if not more, a week, looking after parishioners' problems. So you're quite right, I didn't fulfil my pledge at the time of the election. But what I did instead was to get out there, to meet parishioners, to deal with their problems. Everybody knew what my phone number was. I publicised that, and I made sure people spread the word that if somebody wanted to talk to me, ring me, I will come to them. I wasn't expecting them to come to the parish hall. Surgeries are a lovely idea, but in practice, they don't actually work. How would I engage if I was elected constable? In exactly the same way. Everybody has my number. Everybody knows where I am. Everybody has my email. I can't contact everybody, so I need to rely on people to either contact me with problems they've got or to contact me on behalf of a friend who they know has got problems. I will make a promise now, if elected, I will do my utmost to help every parishioner. But what I can't do is guarantee I'll find a solution to every problem. But I will do my utmost to help. And that's why I didn't hold regular surgeries here, because it wasn't needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Now, just to let you know, guys, that actually I was just teasing you before when I said this is your last question. I'm just getting you over the finishing line. We've actually been told that we have enough time for the person who wanted to ask the question live. So don't go on too long, but the person who wants to ask a live question is Geoffrey Pirouet. He lives in the Green Island area, and his question is about the job of constable being like a managing director. So, Jeff, are you with us in body and mind?
Oh, absolutely. And
lovely.
Yeah, you can't see, but in spirit as well. I'm a former centenier and a former procureur de bien public. I know well that the part of the job of the constable is to raise money, to spend our money wisely, to keep to budget, motivate and recruit and retain staff, both paid and honorary. What recent experience has each candidate had in fulfilling these functions? And will they publish their CVs for the past 10 years in support of this?
Thank you very much, Jeff. And so, Simon.
Am I correct in saying, Mr. Pirouet, you are the same Jeff Pirouet who was a seconder for Marcus Troy? Could you please confirm that?
Can you hear Jeffrey?
Yes, I can.
Were you a seconder for Marcus Troy?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So, I've always disliked the use of planted questions, but I'll answer it. I'm more than happy to give anybody my CV for the last 10 years. I'm more than happy to give anybody my CV for the last 40 years. Being a managing director or a senior manager in any organisation is not about raising money. And to put it into a nutshell, charitable works, I think we all praise and applaud people who do charitable works in raising money for good causes. The question I would like to put out to the parishioners is, do you feel that somebody who raises money for charities deserves purely by that to be your constable? I think it needs more than that at the moment. I think it needs experience. And whilst I think that anybody who does raise money for charities and does that kind of work needs to be applauded, praised and encouraged, I do not see it as being a requisite for being a constable. And I think there needs to be a lot more about the person you choose as constable. Particularly at the moment, I think there needs to be experience in all areas like this, of politics, of administration. And I just do wonder whether or not too much emphasis, in the past certainly, has been put on the work that people have been done, retired businessmen have done, in raising money for charities, and that somehow would make them a good constable. Personally, I don't agree with that viewpoint, but at the same time, I fully applaud the work that anybody does in raising money for charities. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. And Marcus.
I'm very sad that it's come to this, to be perfectly honest. We have been told that the questions are pulled out of a hat. There's no rigging of the question on any of my camp's side whatsoever. There's plenty of people up on the screen. There's names all over the screen. But to suggest that a question has been planted is really most unsatisfactory. We also agreed when we had meetings before the Hustings that it would be open to other people so long as they lived in the parish, which clearly Mr. Pirouet does. In answer to the prime question, I'm a managing director of 4 companies. I was a managing director of 4 hotels when I was 26. I can wind my way through the St Clement's parish accounts. I can look after the administration. I can look after the staff. I can look after all the volunteer services with an even hand. And actually, I think I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Marcus. Right. Well, there we are. We've just gone 9 o'clock. Isn't it wonderful that we've been able to achieve this? And I think, first of all, I must thank the candidates for their approach and the help they have given me in trying to make this as even-handed as possible, not only tonight, but in relation to all other arrangements that we're making. So first, thanks to them. Secondly, thank you to the technical guys on this, 3C, that's Phil and Tom. Now, if they can manage to guide me through this, anyone can do it. I mean, they're brilliant, giving you confidence to do it. So anyone else who's feeling that they are shy little irises, don't worry about it. Phil and Tom will make sure you're okay. So that's 3C. In addition, it's Jenny O'Brien and her team at Digital and the public engagement part of the State's Gref, who have been absolutely wonderful in helping us and guiding us through this. Obviously, we're very grateful And I don't know about you, but I think I've learnt far more tonight than I might have done had we had an actual husting. And it's been interesting. And thank heavens we've managed to get some questions from young people. And then lastly, but by no means least, please, we need to give a round of applause for the Parish of St Clement staff, who have been absolutely wonderful in helping me out whilst I'm stepping in. And we must thank Bev for all her help that she's been giving me. Kim on the technical side of things. This is Kim's iPad. And Claire, who is the wonderful dinger of the bells. And a very important position, Claire, and thank you very much indeed. So if little St Clement can do it, so can the rest of you. And I think this is very interesting, and I hope we'll be able to get out to more people. And please, if anyone tells you the job of a Connotable is a doddle, I can tell you, Len made it look easy. But in the time that I've been trying to help out in the meantime, the range and depth of the questions that the Connotables deal with is considerable. So I can assure you it's a proper job, it's a full-time job, and they do a wonderful achievement in progressing our democracy. So please all go out to vote. We've spent a lot of time checking out the facilities so that when you, on election day, you can come to the parish hall. It's as safe as we can make it. We're going to get through one door and out the other. So those of you who've been concerned about coming to the parish hall, we've done our best. But of course, we all have to wait and follow medical advice. And who knows what might happen? We don't know. But at the moment, let's go ahead, come along and vote and support your future constable and stop moaning. Thank you very much and good night.